Hi everyone, welcome back. In this video, we're going to go through 14 scope tools that you're going to need and see in the project management body of knowledge that will help you in your PMP exam, but also will help you in the real world managing scope and requirements. And these are so important because these are part of business analysis and the business analyst role as well. If you've been following from the beginning, we've been going through a project called Pet Buddy, and we're using all of these tools to manage this project. These are all the people in the Pet Buddy business that we're working with Samantha as the business owner. And here are all the people in the project that we're working with Billy, our project manager, business analysts, developers, and testers to create the Pet Buddy mobile app for this the large doggy daycare that Samantha owns. And she wants to create the Uber of pet stays. So for pet vacation stays, either on a daily basis or if people are going away, they can leave their pets at this pet daycare. We're going to go through 14 tools in scope. There are a lot of tools that we're going to use in scope management for our project. Here they are here. And then after that, in the next one, we're going to go through prioritization tools. So it continues on. Scope is such a large part of our project, and it's important to get it right. Let's get started. The first one we'll do is just a Swimlane flowchart. And that's because this is the easiest to see and the easiest to understand. It's also my favorite because what we're trying to do is just figure out what the customer journey is, how the customer flows from the time that they order to the time where their order is delivered. And it's a nice simple way to do it. We have the different areas, or this could be anything. It could be the different parts of our mobile app. It could be the different parts of the business that we're working in. For example, marketing or customer service or the actual doggy daycare area itself. But our customer starts here and they might download the app, go through that process, and ultimately have their stay and maybe leave a review and finish their process once they pick up their pet at the end. With a Swimlane flowchart, you've got lots of different icons. For example, a decision point is a diamond, and you might have yes or no, or this way or that way. So it could go in a few different directions. For example, over here, we've got with different logins or social logins. And then we've also got databases and systems. So there's a few different icons that you can use, but typically it's just a box for a normal process step by step, how are we going through the process, and then a diamond for decision points so that we might go in a few different directions. A simple process flowchart is very similar, and that can have swim lanes as well, as we can see, but again, it's just mostly the diamonds and mostly the process steps with those same icons, but you could just have it as a simple process flowchart, which could also look like a top-down flowchart, going from the top to the bottom. It just depends on how you want to visualize it. There's no right or wrong way, as long as everyone can understand how the customer is flowing and why we're going to be making decisions in the future. We can see the pain points that our customer might be experiencing. So again, we've got our decision points, process steps, databases or systems, and a few documents or notes, and a few other things that we could include. Now, in the Toyota Production System, or Lean, which came before Agile, so it's part of the Agile methodology, they used to use a value stream map. So this is basically a process flowchart as well. And what we're doing here is it starts in the top right. We have our customer order. They order the item. In this case, they might need their pet to stay somewhere, or they might need a carer to look after their pet, which is what we're trying to create with the Pet Buddy mobile app. So they create their order, and then the supplier, which in this case will be the Project Buddy app, creates what they need to create. With that, we just show the process steps that happens as well. There's many different icons in a value stream map. For example, this one is a queue. If it's waiting, this is a system or database again. We might have a messaging system or communication tools. But the real power with a value stream map is down the bottom here, is with these peaks and troughs. And I might just increase it a little bit so you can see. But the peaks and troughs on the peaks, that is calling out any non-value added time. Non-value added time is any time that doesn't directly add value to the customer. So for example here, it's a queue, it's waiting. So we're spending time waiting. It's not directly adding time value to our customer. But here, we're setting up the profile for our customer, and that's the time that it takes to do that. We call that out in the valleys. That's value added time. It's directly helping the customer to get what they want on their customer journey. So as you can see, we've got our process steps in our value stream map and a few different icons. This one is a pull icon, so they pull the work towards them, which is an agile concept you should be coming to be familiar with. There's a supermarket, similar to a supermarket item is how it was named. You can pull them off the shelf if there's a small bit of inventory there. Lots of different things, many different icons, too many to go through in a small video, but the main idea is the value-added and non-value-added time. And then at the end, it is delivered. That's our delivery truck, but it could be any type of delivery, could be digital. That goes back to our customer. And then it goes around in circles again because our customer will order again, go through the process, and we just want to make sure we reduce that non-value added time as much as possible. Another type of map or customer journey map that we're going to use as we're figuring out what the current situation is and what our scope is going to look like. Again, business analysts, these are very big business analyst tools that our business analysts can use to figure out the customer journey, is a customer journey map. And this one is really wonderful because it gives us the customer journey in steps, the same as everything else, step by step. What do? They download the app, set up their profile, match the sitter based on location and availability. They view the sitter profiles and reviews. They select their sitter and then go through that process. But as they're going through that process, what is their experience? How do they feel? So at the beginning, they've got a comment here. It's nice and easy to use. And these are just the general customer comments that we're seeing. Maybe it's from customer reviews or customer feedback or focus groups. And what are our customers saying when they're happy in this first step? Second step, it's getting a little bit less, out of 10, not too satisfied. And by the third step, it's very dissatisfied in general for our customers. So these are good things for us to look for pain points to address so that we can create scope to address these things and improve our product. There are two other things in a customer journey map. One is our customer persona. And so we've got our ideal customer or the general type of customer that we have. This is an example and a description of that customer. Just in general, so Michelle is a mother of two who has 2 dogs. She needs somewhere to keep her dogs safe while she travels overseas on holiday. And here's an example of what Michelle might look like as our typical customer. What are her expectations? She wants it to be easy to find and match pet owners to pet sitters quickly, safely and easily. And here are the overall steps. So when we're onboarding, these are the steps that we're going through. When we're searching, these are the steps that we're going through. When we're booking, and the stay and communication and the completion and review. So the customer journey map is a really great way to figure out the customer journey and see the pain points and figure out what scope we might need from there. Our next one in figuring out the customer process or the process for our mobile app as it flows through in the customer journey is a SIPOC, which stands for Supplier, Input, Process Step, Output, and Customer. When we're saying supplier and customer, it's for the actual process step itself. So we usually outline the process first, step by step. How is the customer going? For example, they create their profile, the pet owner searches for a pet sitter, they book and pay, then the pet stays and the pet sitter communicates with the owner, and lastly at the end the pet is picked up and the process is reviewed. And ideally if they do it again, they'll go through that whole process again. Just a nice simple way to see it. But for each of these process steps, they have an output. So the output is the customer profile up here, and who receives the benefit of that output. That's the customer of that process. So it's not the overall customer, although it can be, but the customer is whoever receives the output of that particular process. Likewise, the supplier of that process is whoever provides the input for that process step. So now you can see that even though we've got our process steps from top to bottom, each of those process steps has a supplier and an input, so what they need to create that process step, the process step itself, the output of that process, and then who receives the benefit of that process step. And then we get a really beautiful map of all of those inputs and outputs and what we need to do to get that process done. And that is our SIPOC, a really, really nice way to do it. Now, as we move on with our scope, we don't want to just map out the customer journey. We also need to map out and make visible these systems and the systems that we're working with and how the system interacts or how we want it to interact. For example, one way is with a unified modeling language, Sequence Diagram, which is basically just the sequence that the information flows. We've got our customer at the beginning again. So you're seeing a theme here. It usually starts with the customer and goes through a system or a process of some sort. And it goes from left to right and top to bottom on our sequence diagram. So our example here is our customer enters their details into the mobile app home. And you can see we're describing different parts of the system here that the information might flow through, or even different systems that interact together. So this is where we start to look into more of the technical side of things. It goes into the customer database, their name and details, and then they process the payment with the payment system. So this could be part of the overall system or a different system itself that's connected. Then that information goes back to a message to the customer. So you can see how it flows. These blocks or these rectangles are how long this particular part of the system is active for. So as you can see, it needs to be active for all of these things to go through for that entire time. But for the payment system, it's only active for the time that we're making that payment. So it's a short amount of time. And that's a really nice way to see how our system interacts. Another part of our system, or to map out our system, is a context diagram. And so this is where we're starting to delve into the architecture. So again, figuring out the solutions, figuring out the requirements, putting those together, that's going to create the scope for our project. But here is our context diagram, or a data flow diagram. This again shows the different systems and how the information flows through those systems. For example, we've got our Pet Buddy mobile app in the center here, interacting with different systems and different parts of the system. So our payment system over here, with our payment details approved, going back to our customer database, and information from social networks if we're adding details through social media, with customer preferences going back into our customer database again. Lots of different ways. This is our little architecture diagram for the system, and it could be small or it could be huge. I have seen and worked with some context diagrams. You might have pictures of the different systems in here just as a nice representation, and then they look really nice. I've seen some massive architecture documents with lots of interacting systems, but this is a much easier way to display it, and now we can see it, everyone's on the same page. All right, now we've visualized our process, we've visualized our system, now it's time for our team to come together and brainstorm ideas to meet our customer requirements. And we're going to do a few different things here. There's many different ways to do it. Just general brainstorming, but putting them into buckets. So grouping them together in similar ideas. So what we're going to do with our team is just write down all of the ideas that will meet the requirements that we need within the system that we're working with. So we've got our system design and our customer process. And here are all the ideas that our team are going to come up with. But we want to group them into different buckets. So we've got all of the user profile ideas, all of the search and matchmaking ideas, all of the booking and scheduling ideas, payment processing, ratings and reviews. So the team comes up with lots of different ideas, but we can group them together in those different buckets. That's affinity brainstorming. Now, we could also show that in an affinity diagram because we're grouping things with an affinity to each other. They're similar to each other. And this is a really nice way to visualize it. This is our affinity diagram, as you can see. Here are the ideas that our team have come up with. All of the ones that are around booking and scheduling, all of the ones that are around user profiles, search or payment processing, and any other buckets that we want to group our brainstormed ideas together with. One of the great ways that we can do brainstorming is the nominal group technique. Remember, the nominal group technique is anonymous. So typically we write down the ideas. So the team will write down their ideas on the left here or all together. and then they'll reveal them at the same time. So that way we're not influenced by our manager or by the highest paid person or even the loudest person in the room. We all get to have a proper say. So that's one of the benefits of the nominal group technique. But then what we can do is each team member might have a few different points to vote on those items. So let's say each team member has 10 points to distribute on the ideas, and then they can go ahead and vote. This is actually more towards our prioritization, which we'll see a little bit later on, but this is just a little preview, and it's a nice way to do it. As you can see, Samantha, who was our business owner in the first place, even she still has 10 points, so it's still up to everyone in the team. And she puts her points, she puts 3 on pet owner profiles, 3 on special instructions, and then 1 each on verification and profile photos for her choice or her preference of what to do first. Then we can rank those from top to bottom. So we've got our rank 1, our number 1 with the most points, and we want verification and pet owner profiles up there in the top area for us to do first. Another way to visualize this and to break it all down is a mind map. So we're going to see mind maps when we're dealing with scope and when our business analysts are breaking down things and creating scope for our project. We've got our Pet Buddy mobile app, and this just is a way to decompose the idea. So we get our main idea in the center, then the next smaller idea, which is our search algorithm, and then all of the ideas underneath search and matchmaking. So here are all the brainstormed ideas that our team came up with within the bucket of search and matchmaking. And the same thing for ratings and reviews. And we can break it down even further if we want to, but this is just a really nice way to visualize it again using that mind map idea. And now we've got a whole bunch of ideas for scope, and we've got the requirements that we came up with originally. Now it is time for us to put together one of the most important documents on our project, and that's the requirements traceability matrix. It traces the requirement that we originally had, that we figured out, and how that matches up to the scope that we're delivering. So for example, these requirements on the left, our customer wants to allow pet owners to create and manage their personal details and to get their pet details as well. How are they going to do that? This is the scope item that we're going to deliver is through user profiles. So that's one of our features. And then we've got user stories or smaller user stories within that feature. And that's our pet owner profiles. It might be a user story if we're working with Agile, or a work package if we're working on a normal project. We're going to have the different IDs, so we want it to be tested as well. We want our test case ID, who it's assigned to, and where it currently is. So now we can see the customer requirement, how we're meeting that with the scope, and is it being quality tested, and then is it finished or is it in progress? We're tracing it from start to finish, from the requirement all the way through to done. We can also break that down once we've got that in our work breakdown structure, which is just another way to decompose the item. As you can see, we've got our Pet Buddy app. It's similar to our mind map in this way. We break it down into the next highest level items, user profiles. These are our deliverables or our features, our booking and scheduling. And then under that, these are our work packages and our user stories. And you could break it down even further again if you really needed to. And then the last one for scope, before we get to prioritization, is our work breakdown structure dictionary, or WBS Dictionary. So this is like our work breakdown structure, but it adds all of the extra information that we need about each particular item. So this is really the heart of our project in this WBS Dictionary. It goes from our feature, as you can see here, with a unique ID, and then the different work packages or user stories that we've got here. The description of these, it gives the description of what we're delivering, who we need to create it, the duration, so our schedule duration, the costs to create that particular item, the current status, and then our quality acceptance criteria. And we've got this as our user story type acceptance criteria. As a pet owner, I want to create a profile for my pet so that potential sitters can learn about my pet's personality, needs, and preferences. And that's how we're going to meet that quality criteria for that user story or work package. Who it's assigned to, the start date and the finish date. And now putting all of those things together, we've got a wonderful visual idea, and all of that information has been pulled out of our heads into a visual map of our system, a visual map of our customer process, and a visual display of all of the scope and requirements that we need to meet our customer requirements for this project to have success. So it's a wonderful way to look at it and a wonderful way to do it. Those are all our scope management tools. I hope you've enjoyed. Of course, you can get this pack. They're in the link in the description. But otherwise, I'll see you in the next video when we're going to prioritize our scope.